All right, looks like we got everything set up here. Good to go after the computer just randomly magically restarted for apparently no reason at all. That's always fun. All right, so today I wanted to talk about something that actually I've been personally working on, and it was a question I had. Oh boy, long, and I mean long time ago. We're talking like December, January, and it was more about kind of like off-season fitness. And I started thinking, I'm like, everybody obviously can use better fitness, but for me personally, I this person was looking at more of muscle development type of fitness. I was more interested in the kind of flexibility end of the fitness scale. And so for me, I happen to have a friend that owns a yoga studio in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Her name's Jennifer Dixon. So all you Tennessee folks, check out Thrive Yoga and Wellness. Jennifer's awesome. But I reached out to my friend like, hey, I'm really kind of struggling with my own flexibility. I've had some questions from golfers about strength and flexibility development. Is there something that you might be able to recommend? Sorry, I have a mosquito like trying to kill me here, and I can't hear it buzzing because I got my headphones on. So if you see me randomly swatting, I'm trying to kill a mosquito. But anyway, so I was asking Jennifer about like what from a yoga standpoint, because I kind of had flexibility in mind for myself, what could I be thinking about? What could I be looking at doing to help not just build flexibility, but also, ooh, got him. Nice. Haha, dead mosquito. So how can I build my flexibility, but how can I also like help my students build strength and develop this over time, especially if we're looking at like an off-season type of training? How can we help develop this over a period of time that's gradual so it's not intimidating and it's not like this massive expectation of, oh, well, I did yoga 3 times, I should be able to do the splits, and really kind of build that confidence and give it the structure that you need still for a workout. Because I know like a big question for me, a big issue that I have with my workouts is I kind of struggle with like what to do and when and frequency and things like that. And so I went and I talked to her about like my student needs, time frames for practice, things like that, knowing that golfers don't necessarily love to work out. They would much rather be playing golf. And if you want to be a better golfer and you're looking at fitness, you're probably willing to do the work, but you don't want to drop like a 90-minute yoga session on someone who's brand new to it. So we were looking at like shorter, 15, 20, maybe 30-minute routines that could still kind of put you through your paces. Maybe you're breaking a little sweat, but definitely working on the strength building, especially core, and then also building the flexibility in your game. And so I was going back and forth with Jennifer, and we were talking about rotational flexibility because obviously it's a huge part of golf. If you can't rotate fully, you're going to start doing things to compensate for that. And it's going to be not just one wrench in your swing, it's going to be like a bucket full of wrenches in your swing. And so we were talking about this, and we were really working on, I was surprised when she was, she's like taking notes. We're going back and forth, and we set this up over like a period of probably 4 or 5 days. She was sending me videos about what she thought was good. Is this, do I think this is going to be too long, too hard? And so I would kind of try to do them, knowing that I am not a flexible person and that I don't have, I don't devote a ton of time to fitness. And so we kind of settled into kind of a nice little sweet spot. And we were looking at this, and I was noticing, and she was absolutely confirming it for me when we were talking, that so much of the flexibility works through like the hamstrings, the glutes, and into the low back, because a lot of people really suffer from low back pain. And I was absolutely one of them. And selfishly speaking, that's what I was hoping to get out of it for myself, was like a solution to my low back pain. And looking at, can we do this and still build strength and, you know, core stability? If we can add a couple yards, hey, that's always awesome. And so much of this works through not just like your core for muscle building, but the flexibility aspect goes so much through your hamstrings and your hip flexors. I was blown away by how important hip flexor flexibility was in this process. And she told me, just trust me. This is where it needs to be. Give it a solid, you know, 2-3 weeks for yourself. If you don't think it's helping, if you don't think it's gonna be a good thing for your folks, I'm happy to reassess and to, adjust to where you think it needs to be. And so I trust her. I took her word for it and I started doing, she put together 3 different sessions. One was flexibility based, one was strength based, and one was a longer session that was a blend of the two. And so I started doing these. Sorry, Jennifer. I was only doing them like once or twice a week at first, but I always felt really good afterwards. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, I should do that more. And like I did it enough to the point where I knew I always felt good. And I saw some positive benefits in my golf game, mainly that I wasn't like super stiff and didn't have an aching back the next day. Because a lot of times, if I'm playing 18 holes, because I really struggle with flexibility, because I don't really work out, that this was a frequent problem for me. I'd play and then I'd be sore the next day. And honestly, because of that, I kind of actually shifted my schedule to line up where I had household chores like mowing the lawn the day after I played golf. So I knew that all I had to do was sit around on my little riding lawnmower and just kind of putz around and not really do any heavy lifting. And so as I started feeling better, I decided, hey, maybe I'm going to lean into this a little bit more. And so I went from like once or twice a week to 3 or 4 times a week. And now I've been holding it pretty steady at 5 or 6 times a week where I'm going through these. And sometimes I'm doing multiple of these sessions a day just because they're fun. I like how they feel. They give me a good sweat that I don't feel like I'm dying from. But most importantly, I have noticed the massive increase in my flexibility and the fact that I don't have any pain, like zero, goose egg, nothing, nada, zilch, no pain the next day. And for me, that honestly, it kind of changed my relationship with golf. I struggled to practice the amount that I wanted to because of pain. So I would play and I would have my notes that I would take from when I was playing, and I'd have a couple of things that I wanted to work on. And I had to wait at least a day. Sometimes if I was playing in bad weather, like I got stuck out in the rain earlier this year and it was horrible. I want to say it was like the first week of May and it was raining, but I'm like, you know what? It's the first time I'm out to play golf. I'm going to stick through it. I'm just going to tough it out. And holy smokes, I paid for that for a couple days and it hurt. And so if you're a person who doesn't golf very often, this is something that could happen. Like you go out to play, you have fun while you're playing. Maybe you've got some liquid courage, some bottled or canned anesthetic. So you're feeling no pain there on the course. But then like you go home, you take a nap afterwards, you wake up and you're just like rigor mortis stiff. Or you wake up the next day and you can like barely bend over to tie your shoes. It's kind of what it was like for me. And that's something that really kind of told me, hey, I need to find some type of solution for this. I knew that I had students that wanted this solution as well. And so that's why I reached out to Jennifer. So yoga for golfers can be huge. And I know if you're like me and you had this mindset of, Yoga is kind of this, like I'll let my wife do it. I'll let my kids do it. I don't like yoga's not for me. I like to lift things. Yeah, heavy stuff. Well, the problem is that was like 22-year-old me. And 22-year-old me is 15 years in the rear view. So like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna do yoga because I'm gonna lift stuff. Well, I wasn't lifting stuff either. Maybe lifting's a solution for you. It really wasn't enough of a solution for me. But just putting, and it doesn't have to be yoga, but the importance of flexibility. Focus on hamstrings, focus on quads and hip flexors, and you'll be surprised at how much that frees up your back to rotate more and to perform better and more pain-free on the golf course. So that's something that's been big for me. And it kind of dawned on me because I actually check in with Jennifer. I'm a client of hers, and we touch base a fair amount about how I'm feeling, what I'm doing, adjustments I could make, things like that. Yeah, I had a sciatica issue that kind of flared up out of nowhere because I had been like working in some weird contorted spots, like in my garage and under a car and stuff like that. And she gave me some stretches for that. And, 2, 3 days later, it was all taken care of. So, I, through this process of checking in with her and making sure that I'm on track, I've noticed that the things that she tells me to do in my video or in the videos that she's put together for my group have gotten easier and have gotten, it sounds weird to say, but more satisfying, if that makes sense. Because when you're in the downward dog pose, which is where you're just your butt's up in the air and your hands are on the ground and your feet are on the ground and you're just like a big triangle. I had issues getting my heels to the ground because that's a hamstring stretch. And I know because of my heart surgery that I have some like reasonably atrophied hamstrings because I spent several months in the hospital after my heart surgery. And it's something that I've dealt with since I was 12 years old. So I had kind of written it off. I'm like, well, yeah, my hamstrings are always tight. I'm never flexible, and that's just life. Well, sticking with it, doing the stretches 5, 6 times a week. And when I was doing them at that rate, as I'm still doing them at that rate, but when I started to actually pick it up and do it for 5, 6 times a week, I started sleeping better because I didn't have back pain. Like back pain would wake me up at night. I was sleeping better. I was noticing that I was able to play more pain free and follow it up the next day with less pain. But after those, after like the first 2 weeks of like 5 days a week doing the yoga, and again, this is like 15 minutes. This isn't turning my house up to 110 degrees and doing like this crazy 45-minute, 2 hour or hour long, hour and a half long session. I don't even know how long like a regular yoga session goes. I'm still fairly ignorant about the topic, but just devoting a little bit of time to flexibility has greatly improved my enjoyment of the game. And to me, that's most important. It's the enjoyment of the game. I don't play to break the course record anymore. I don't play to win state championships. I play to test out things that I have learned from other instructors and to help my students. So if I can't play, if I can't physically do the thing that I need to do to test out these different practice routines and stuff, then I can't help my students as much. So for me to kind of get that power back, to be given that freedom back, was pretty awesome. So, A, thank you, Jennifer. Really appreciate it. Thank you for all the encouragement as well. And then B, for you, the listener, the watcher, give yourself some time devoted to flexibility. You would be surprised how much of a benefit it is. And the thing is, just like golf practice, this is not a bucket that you fill once. You know, you don't work at flexibility for 3 hours one day and then you're totally flexible for the next 2 months. No. And that's just like golf. If you go to the driving range once and you hit 5 buckets of golf balls, that doesn't make you a pro. Sure, you hit 1,000 golf balls. I would rather have you hit 50 for 20 straight days. Then you will be a much better golfer. And that's basically what I've done with the flexibility training. Same with strength training. You know, you do it incrementally over time and you build those results. You don't just say, hey, I'm going to do this. I did it for a long time and now it's going to be better. You have to kind of approach it with like a step-by-step, really kind of baby steps approach. And you have to give it time, just like swing changes, to sink in. And so for me, yoga did that. It was 15, 20 minutes dedicated to flexibility that I'm doing dang near every day. And it's something that has helped me greatly on the course. Not, not in the classic sense that you would, it doesn't help me draw the ball any better. It doesn't help me. Well, honestly, I would say that it actually kind of helps me think better. I was going to say it doesn't help me get in a better mental state, but honestly, because I'm not worried about pain and I'm not worried about, can I really go for it on this swing or am I going to feel it in 6 holes? That's freed me up to be more focused and more in the moment on the shot. So you would be surprised how kind of far reaching, far stretching this can be to helping your golf game. So that's really just all I wanted to talk about today. I see that we don't have any questions in the chat, so I'm just going to kind of write it off a little bit earlier than normal, but don't forget about your body when it comes to golf. So many people do this. And honestly, when it comes to nutrition as well, and I'm not saying like, oh, well, let's only eat clean foods and have our kale salads every day. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying just be a little bit mindful about what you're putting in your golf bag for snacks when you go out on the course. If you don't put snacks in your golf bag when you go play, maybe you need to think about that. Maybe you need to look at what type of endurance and stamina you have on the course. I know that I have a sweet tooth, and I know that I don't have a ton of like big shot stamina on the course. So I know that I have to eat usually around the 4th hole when I'm playing 18. I have to eat something around the 4th hole, like I like the Nature Valley oats and honey granola bars. I eat something like that around the 4th hole, and that gives me a fair amount of long-lasting energy. And then usually around the 12th hole, 13th hole, I'm going to eat an apple because that gives me a little bit more of a spike in energy because of all the sugar, the natural fructose in the apple. That's going to give me a little bit of a spike. And then I'll usually have, probably another apple or maybe a banana right around 16, just to kind of give me the energy to sustain that throughout the end of my round. And it was a lot more important for me when I was playing tournament golf and walking rounds and stuff like that. I mean, I almost exclusively ride now because I'm either teaching or playing for fun. But when I'm looking at a round that's important and when I'm talking with my students about this, these are very easy to make decisions that you don't like. There's no swing thoughts with eating a granola bar. But you would be surprised again at how much these little tiny things can go and impact your golf game, just like flexibility. So just some, no pun intended, and no pun totally intended, food for thought, but it can go a long way to kind of think about things that are outside of what you might standardly think of as golf or golf related. So I almost got a little Christopher Walken there. Of golf, golf related is very crazy, very good for your game. Anyway, that's not what today's episode is about. Today's episode is not about uh, weird voices. It's about looking kind of outside of the box as to how you can improve your game. And especially if you've like plateaued at a score and you just can't seem to get over it, you know, you're looking and you've got your practice schedule and you're doing things right and you're pretty sure you're making good mental choices out on the course. You check out our last Q&A about smiley faces and frowny faces. It's a really good way to measure your mental process. But just don't be afraid to look outside of what is standardly viewed as golf in order to assess and maybe potentially find a breakthrough for your game. For me, it was stretching. I had known about my nutritional pattern for a long time. So that was something I figured out a while ago. But I mean, and honestly, that was something that really helped me consistently break 80, you know, to start shooting the 70s, because I was noticing that I was running out of gas, and like my last 5 holes, it was not uncommon for me to ride a bogey train all the way home. But once I figured out that it was a stamina issue and that I needed to kind of change up my nutritional pattern, it went a long way to fixing that. And it became a lot easier for me to start breaking 80 regularly. Now with my age, I hate saying that, but I've noticed that, you know, my body is running into not issues, but you know, there's some limitations that are happening more frequently than I would like them. And so for me to turn some focus to flexibility has been a huge key. So hopefully this conversation has helped you. Hopefully you can take a little bit of that flexibility conversation, apply it to your game. Again, it's not something that happens overnight. It has to happen frequently and honestly, probably for a couple of weeks. You know, you're looking at probably 3 to 4 weeks of several times a week addressing flexibility to see it in your game. So you can look up hip flexor stretches, they're super easy. You can look up hamstring stretches, you probably know a bunch already. And you know how you can kind of stretch through your glutes and into your low back, and you'll be surprised how much of an impact that has. So I'm going to sign off for the night. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you actually know when I'm going live. But spoilers, every Sunday at 8 p.m. Central Time. And hey, as always, I will catch you all in the short grass. Cheers, everybody. Take care.